Many are those who speak of the great deeds of crusaders, heroes who traveled to faraway and exotic lands to fight for what they held as the most sacred, faith and glory. It would not take long, however, for the Crusades to take a darker turn in 1204, as the Fourth Crusade sacked Christianity's most splendid city, Constantinople. None of the Crusades organized ever since benefited Christianity at large. As decades and centuries passed by, the spirit of the Crusades slowly eradicated. However, it would be with one of the most unprecedented campaigns that the spirit of the Crusades would revive, in a glorious attempt to redeem the West in the eyes of the Eastern Roman Empire. The county of Savoy existed in between major and minor powers, each competing for their own place in the sun. To the north and west lay France, a kingdom that was heavily decentralized, allowing for local lords like the Dukes of Burgundy and Dauphin to act mostly independently. Close by lay Avignon, the official seat of the Pope from 1304, exerting his spiritual authority. At the south, the marches of Saluzzo and Montferrat also clung onto their lands, while at the east lay the strong Duchy of Milan. Simultaneously, in the interior, the rulers of Geneva and Vaud would often challenge the power of the Savoyard counts. It would be one of those smaller powers, Montferrat, which would interfere with Amadeo's destiny the most. The ruling family of Montferrat had intermarried with the Roman emperors, not the German kings who claimed to hold the title of Romans, but the actual descendants of Rome, the Greek family of the Palaiologoi in Constantinople. It would be from the marriage of a noblewoman from Montferrat and the Savoyard Count Aymon IV that Amadeo VI would be born in 1334, a boy with the strength of the Alps and the legacy of Rome in his blood. But the young Amadeo would soon face hardship in his life, as his parents both died at a young age, leaving the state to be ruled by two regents, the Savoyard vassal lords of Vaud and Geneva. Things looked dire for the young prince, as the strong French vassals of Dauphin were eyeing Savoyard lands, while the boy lacked the gravitas to inspire his vassals to join him into battle. Nevertheless, the boy had received extensive education in military theory, diplomacy and martial arts, and it was thus that under the guidance of his entourage that he secured oath of loyalty from his vassals and alliances with most of his neighbors, allowing the young prince to lead two successful campaigns against French of Dauphin. It would be this victory that ushered the now 19-year-old Amadeo to proclaim a knights tournament for his people and claim his rightful position. During this tournament, Amadeo appeared in front of the crowd dressed in green garments and military armor, along with 11 more knights and noble women, and he would continue to do so for the rest of his life, thus earning the nickname the Green Count of Savoy. Amadeo went on to become a pious man, fasting for even more than his health would allow, while being a righteous ruler. He secured his lands and his people, while he strengthened the bonds with his vassal and allied lords. He grew so much in reputation that he was even visited by the Holy Roman Emperor of the Germans. However, judging on his later actions, the heart of the Count may have actually been laying with the true heirs of Rome all along. The opportunity to realize his destiny was not late to present itself. The 100 Years' War that was waging between England and France, as well as local conflicts, brought many mercenary companies to the western parts of Amadeo's domains. Those men, often lacking pay or employers, turned to banditry. Thus the region was slowly flooded with the so-called Grand Companies. But this was not an issue only concerning the Savoyards. The Pope himself requested help from Amadeo, and they jointly proposed to launch a crusade so that the bandits join in the search for loot, while at the same time fight for a noble cause. And for Amadeo, it was clear that no better crusader target could be found than the struggling lands of the Balkans, where he could help his cousin, now Eastern Roman Emperor John V Palaiologos. The plan worked, with many men, bandits and pious soldiers alike, flocking to the Green Count's banners, in order to create a strong core to his army and protect himself from malicious elements within his own force. Amadeo founded the Order of the Collar in 1364, in Avignon, with the blessings of the Pope. The order would consist of 15 initial members, all trustworthy allies of the Green Count. Additionally, Amadeo also contacted the Venetians for ships, and the Genoese Lord of Lesbos and the King of Hungary for support. as the enemy they would be facing was no other than the Ottoman Turks, a people who scored consecutive victories against all their neighbours and were now even threatening Constantinople. And so, in 1366, the Green Count and his Savoyards set on their glorious adventure to save the Roman Empire. The Ottoman Beys had long overrun the interior of Asia Minor by this point, but it would be after a devastating earthquake in 1354 that the Ottomans managed to settle violently in the region on the junction of Europe and Asia at Kallipoli. From there, the Ottomans advanced further inland, capturing the important cities of Didymotiko, Philippopolis, and even Adrianople up to 1366, establishing themselves firmly within the region. Kallipoli would thus be the target of the Crusaders. It is estimated that the Crusader army would have amounted to around 1,000 mounted knights and their squires, as well as some supporting troops, most of them French-speaking. The Ottoman garrison, on the other hand, would have been less numerous, but was certainly well fortified. It was on their first day of their arrival, on the 21st of August, that the Crusaders attempted an initial assault from 3 different positions, with many of them climbing the walls with wild fervour. On this attempt, it was also the noblemen that joined along the common soldiers, and it was actually one of them, Roland de Vézy, that lost his life first among the Crusaders, being hit by a stone projectile. The assault stopped for the night and continued even more ferociously during the next day. The Crusaders once again attempted to directly assault the walls, even creating some breaches, with the noblemen, including Amadeo, fighting on the front lines to inspire their soldiers, but still no definite result was achieved. The Crusaders, advised by the Lord of Lesbos, stopped their assault for the night. Their decision proved right. On the next day, the Ottomans had abandoned the city, and its Roman inhabitants welcomed the Crusaders with joy. Kallipoli was reclaimed, and now the Ottomans would lay stranded on the European side, and the Romans would have the chance to strike back. Or at least in theory. As Amadeo was already informed some days prior, his cousin was now a hostage of the Bulgarians, as he was stopped on his way back to Constantinople from Hungary, where he had voyaged to request for help. With the emperor essentially a captive of the Bulgarians, Amadeo also launched an expedition against them, capturing important coastal cities, lands that had belonged to Constantinople for generations, but were now lost for more than 60 years. Amadeo and his force thus captured Anchialos, Sozopolis, Mesembria, and also laid siege to Varna. The Bulgarian Tsar was thus pressured to release Ioannis V and allow free passage for him to his own domains. The captured cities would be transferred to the Romans, who would rule them until the final days of 1453. The crusade was a complete success, a rare occasion especially for the standard set for the later Crusades. An army put together by force and the desire of loot, like it was the case for the men of the Grand Companies, combined with the unshakable piety and crusader spirit of its leader and his entourage, managed something that much larger expeditions, like the Crusades of Nicopolis and Varna, would fail to achieve. The Roman Empire was saved from the brink of total collapse and would last for almost an extra century. Amadeo, on the other hand, was also greatly rewarded for his success, not in financial terms, but in terms of prestige and status. For the rest of his years, he would be regarded as a great ruler in the region, consulted for regional affairs. He had not only performed the request of the Pope, but also achieved personal glory on the battlefield. All in all, the Savoyard Crusade embodied the best example of how a successful expedition was imagined by Crusader leaders. Diffuse pressure at home, achieve quick success against the enemies of Christendom, or Constantinople in general, and safely return back to continue a glorious reign.